Hello again, everyone, and welcome to this episode of One-on-One. I'm Martin False. And throughout the years, sometimes I have guests on here that are very esteemed in whatever they decided to do. Doctors, lawyers, judges, district attorneys, senators, you name it, we've had them on. But every now and then, I like to get that person who behind the scenes works for the betterment of others, for charities, for the community, and our guest fits that bill tonight. When we come back from the break, we're going to go way back to his early days and then his South Terrebonne days. Ricky Felio is our guest on One-on-One. One-on-One is brought to you by the Law Office of Waits and Downer. Sometimes the parents know best,
Definitely. My mom had the best sense of humor. She was, and you talk about charity work, my dad, they would put on puppet shows and stuff for kids at school. And we didn't have a lot of monies and stuff growing up on Slater Street and all, but they would always find it. At Christmas time, my mom would make things. She was really crafty. She can.
That's where Sue gets.
Yeah, that's where Susan gets all her craft skills from my mom. I got two. I think I have a king size and a queen size bedspread that my mom crocheted for me, and she did weddings, and to make extra money, she did weddings and stuff. And she had a couple of flower shops. She did all kinds of stuff, but she had the sense of humor. She was, and she did a lot of work for the Red Cross. She would put on benefits to raise money for the Red Cross at the
So East you Park. Got a little charity from your mom.
Yeah, for the East Park Recreation Center, she'd put on these shows, these talent shows sort of things, and she would sing. And I think she really wanted to be an entertainer in her in another life or whatever.
And Sue likes to write songs.
Sue's a good songwriter and sings and all. And my little sister Crystal, she's kind of the practical one, got more common sense than anybody, I believe. And my little brother Rusty, they all have good hearts, and they do a lot of things. So.
You sound like you had a typical, well-rounded, sometimes tough upbringing, but it sort of made you into the person you are today.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't trade that.
When did you start getting involved in charities, and why?
Well, and that came from my mom and dad. That came from seeing them. My mom, like I said, my mom, she worked for her and Miss Goldie Roddy. They worked together for the Red Cross and all. And my mom, when my dad got hurt, my mom worked for, I don't know what, she would go door to door selling. I think it was full of brush. I'm not 100% sure what it was, but she would do that to earn monies for it. And that's where you see that all the time with her. And she was a practical joker. I mean, my mom was just, my little sister, Crystal, came in from school when they were living on Palm Avenue. And my mother lay down in the living room with a butcher knife or the kitchen, I don't remember what it was, through her side of her arm underneath with ketchup all over. And they walked into the house. And, and she was just always doing practical jokes. She was always.
Now, that was beyond a practical
joke. Yeah, it was. I know. I said, you traumatized her. That's what she always said. But my mom passed, and my dad died at 48.
Yeah.
At a young age from a massive heart attack. And my mom died at 60.
Wow.
Yeah. And then my grandmother died at. My grandfather died at 55, and my grandmother, I think she died at 64. And but we always had stuff like my grandparents. We would decorate that house big time. My dad would go and we would decorate that house, a big round driveway, and it was a show place. It was a mini Al Copeland's back in the day.
Oh, man.
And people would come around that driveway. We'd have Santa Claus and all, and candy and giving out to people, and that was just what I see.
You sort of the happy-go-lucky. I remember when me and you used to go to Rick's where the old yachts 2 was, and in Houma it was Rick's. It was Boogie's.
Boogie's, yeah. You go down when it was Boogie's, yeah. And then it was Rick's. That's when it was
Mike's.
Yeah,
Steakhouse.
yeah, right.
And they all owned it when it wasn't named after them. It was always named after their family.
Yeah.
Me and you used to go to Eastway after.
Oh, yeah.
It would close down, and we get
when
a
it
little
would close down late at night. They stayed open 24 hours a day, or what? Did they stay this
Eastway
late?
must have been, because we would leave at 2 a.m. in the morning from Rick's.
Yeah, right. Walk next door. Yeah.
We'd walk next door, and we'd eat that breakfast. And they had the little butter packs. And they had an alligator in the corner of the Eastway.
Well, you started that because we wasn't sitting at the same table, and somebody hit me in the back of the head when you threw a butter deal in the back of my head. Hit in the back of the head, and that gator was up over me.
Right.
And then you said, "Hey, watch this! I'm gonna put it in his mouth." And then that's where it worked. And I said, "Oh yeah, well look at this." And I don't know how many butter packs they had in there. Well, we had to tip that waitress pretty good money because she kept.
But we laughed when the place burned down, not because it burned down. We said, "Oh my God,
we contribute to that.
There's going to be butter all over the place, melted butter."
Right, exactly. We contributed to.
So we I don't know how many butter little cups we had.
It was a big alligator head.
Yeah,
it was about at least a 12-foot alligator.
We kept a big thing. We kept shooting like basketball, getting it in the mouth.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
I knew you before that. I think my first recollection of you was through Mike St. Martin. Yeah. Is that correct?
I've been knowing Mike for a long time. And the reason, and the way, how I met Mike was, I had a friend of mine that had a really horrific accident in the North Sea. Worked for Raymond International and had a really bad accident. Stayed in Scotland hospitals for months. They flew him back to New Orleans at Southern Baptist. And I'd go see him in the hospital, and he was telling me about, he talked with a couple lawyers and all for the circumstances and all. So I seen this book, Best Lawyers in America. And I pulled the book out, so they went by states. And then on the maritime law, there was Mike St. Martin. I'm like, and it's Houma, Louisiana. I was like, man, Houma, Louisiana, Mike St. Martin in this book. So, and I went to see Fred, but Fred had some surgeries being done. So I called him from offshore and told him, I said, hey, they got this guy, this Mike St. Martin from, lives here in the Houma. He's in this book, Best Lawyers in America. He said, I know. He said, I hired him yesterday. He hired Mike, and then Mike was off on a plane going to Scotland. And that's how, and that didn't Fred, being Fred, he said, yeah, and guess what? He's got a duck lease. I think because Mike had a duck lease over there off of Lake Pension, that was that closed the deal, whatever, that he hired Mike. And then through Fred, I got to know Mike real well, and then we just became good friends. And
I remember you through Mike. Y'all put wood duck.
Well, and that's when they did, yeah, because we had, I think I talked with you, need some, Mike wanted to do some advertising, I believe.
He did advertising, and he also invested in Nutriman.
Oh, yeah, right. They're like family, him and Ginger. We traveled together a lot and over the years but we did do that, we went and banned some wood ducks. Mike and I had around 40 wood duck houses in the back of his farm. Down by Black. Right.
Mike was always good for a sportsman show or an interview.
Oh, yeah. Mike hunt and fish. We travel over quite a few places in Canada, Colorado. I don't know how many trips to Colorado hunting and duck hunting. We duck hunted big time. Mm-hmm. I mean, I practically lived at the houseboat. We hunted so much. I remember I was like, that 60 days, I was hunting at least 55 of them.
Were you on the jet when Mike St. Martin called me in the 80s and said, Martin, I need you to come film a deposition. And I'm like, okay, what's a deposition? He goes, well, this young lady in Mississippi's husband was killed offshore. Right. And we have to go get her testimony. And I would like to hire you to come film the whole deposition. So, of course, I accepted. I'm on the. Mike was bigger than life. I mean, in the 80s, he was like,
Oh, listen.
like you said, just, he was Mike St. Martin.
Yeah.
And we're on that plane, and I'm looking out the window, and the treetops are getting closer and closer. Till we're about 10 feet over the pine treetops as we're going into Mississippi, and I'm going, Mr. Mike, are we supposed to be that close to the treetop? And he was taking a little nap, and he wakes up, he looks, and he starts screaming at the pilot, who I think might have dozed off. And so, of course, we recovered. And so I always wondered if I hadn't seen those treetops.
Well, yeah. Well, it could have been worse because it could have been Mike flying a plane because Mike had lots of plane jets and seaplanes.
Right.
And one time we were coming in off the intercoastal, and before they had the high rise, they had the drawbridge, that bridge that would raise up on Park. And Lloyd Geist was Mike's pilot. I had the headsets on, and Mike says, "I got it, man. I got it." And I said, I'm thinking, Mike got his hands on the yoke, and I'm like, "Hey, no." And that bridge was going up, and I'll tell you what, and then all of a sudden, Lloyd took over. Lloyd took over it for a little bit, and he said, "Okay, I got it." And it was the gust of wind that came up or something, and the plane did that number, and Lloyd said, "I got it." And he landed the plane.
Well, Mike did dirt bikes. He did all kinds of stuff.
No, I don't know how many fast boats he's got. Nothing's is fast enough for for him. He's.
But when did y'all become friends from your friends thing? But did he represent you later when you had your accident?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know at the time because I would see Mike at the hospital at West Jeff in the burn unit. I didn't know what happened really until it registered a little later on. It's something I always say. A lot of times people call me up when lawyers, or, talk about lawyers, this and that, and I always say, look, if they got wolves at your door, it don't cost any more to get a bigger wolf. And one thing I say about Mike, he's the alpha dire wolf. Lloyd's in London knows him real well.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
He was so helpful when I was making Nutriman, just giving me confidence. And of course, I was 22 when I was raising money for it.
Oh, yeah. I know. He talks about that every once in a while.
He was larger than life, and I'm sitting in his office, and he goes, "Well, you want to make a movie?" "Yes, sir." "Really?" And I'd be sitting there and having to make my pitch, but just a generous person.
Yeah, Mike's real charitable through all. I mean, he's done quite a bit with Lewis Infant Center. Next door, they put it next door to his house, and him and I used to do a lot of things together with those kids, and we'd take them in the airboat, and then the first time we took them in the airboat, we realized we cannot take that many at one time because there was just him and I. And
that's what I'm saying. I knew you did a lot of charity stuff.
Yeah, well, I played Santa Claus. Mike's birthday is Christmas Eve. So, but every Christmas Eve when we would go, Sister Rosario would bring all the kids to Mike and Ginger's house, and I would dress up as Santa Claus and played Santa Claus for a lot of years. And those kids, they would just break your heart. You'd ask you what you want for Christmas when they'd said, "I wanted to be with my mom and dad," and
right.
What their mom and dad did, and why those kids are there, and it just would.
Well, Chuck and Chris are still carrying on that legacy.
Yeah, same thing. Well, that started out with Mike and I in a dually. Sister Rosario would give us a list of addresses. And so Mike and I would go buy, toys, groceries, and stuff around for Christmas. Mm-hmm. And that's what we would do Christmas Eve during the day. And we started out with just doing that. And then later on, somebody asked us to go to a school in Grand Caya, in Dulac. So we would go down there, and then I said, "I got a Santa Claus suit. Let me dress up as Santa Claus." So then we started doing that. And each kid would get a jogging suit and a pair of tennis shoes. And it started out more and more and more schools and more schools. We'd go to Senator Circle, we'd go to Southdown, we'd go to Village East, we'd go to different schools. It got to where we outgrew the dually for sure. Now you got to be U-Haul trucks.
And they get the special order.
Yeah. And Mike's staff would take care of all of it, but they would all unwrap presents. And, it was, and I grew up with, like I said, we didn't have much, but what we had, and we didn't know it.
You were telling me about your accident one day, and I'm going, I would have never thought.
Oh, yeah.
Because what you had to overcome. Could you share that with the audience?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Came in from offshore, getting ready to go run some errands and stuff and all, and I grabbed a lighter. And I remember this. I grabbed a lighter, and I smoked at the time. I went to light a cigarette, and the flame just shot up, and it singed my eyebrows. And I was like, well, it was a bad light or whatever. And I grabbed another light, and I walked outside. The following night, I had went to the tavern in the mall, met some friends, and we went down Montague, visited a bit, and I came back to my house. I went to his house at 1:30 in the morning. Walked in, went to my bedroom, locked up, and took my clothes off, had my underwear and my socks, and went to put the burglar alarm on with the key type back then, and I grabbed the lighter and I struck that lighter. When I struck that lighter, the whole room lit up, boiling flames. And it rolled, and I went to get out. It lit up shoulder high. And my first sensation was all my hair being burnt off. I had some of that 200-mile-an-hour NASCAR hairspray in my hair.
Oh, wow.
And it just, and I went to get out the bedroom door, but through the little dining room right there into the kitchen and to the side door where I'd normally come in and out, it was flames. It was just rolling flames, and I was being burnt. And I dove over, went back and I dove over my bed, and then I rolled on the double door bathroom, and I landed on the ceramic floor because I pinched my nose and covered my mouth, and no survival, offshore training, whatever, but kicked in, and when I rolled on the floor, it went led to a utility room, and I could make out from the flame, I could make out the back door, and I knocked down the back door of my left shoulder, and when the whole door in the frame, in the pictures, it laid out. And when I got up, and I got sucked back into the house. So it was backdraft. You hear that.
I saw the movie.
Yeah, exactly. And I experienced that because it pushed me back into the house, and I hit up on the back wall, and that's when oxygen, I guess, got to the attic, whatever, and that's when it blew up. That's when the roof went up, walls went out of us and fell down, and I had that freezer, was right next to a freezer, and it fell over, but it fell over on some other debris, and I was able to climb up on it because I couldn't get out. I was kind of trapped in a spot, and I fell over, and I climbed up, and the attic had come down, and I got up to the attic and busted through the roof and got on top of the roof with the walls blowing up and down, and I ran and jumped off the roof and landed in the yard of a neighbor.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. This one-on-one program has been brought to you by the law offices of Waits and Downer.